Hello and welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people who do amazing things. And today I'm super excited to have an author, super awesome human being. And I can't say the name, so I'll let you introduce the name of where you work and where you manage. But Scott Ellis, thanks for coming to the podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to speak to you.
So it was on LinkedIn, and there was this post waxing super lyrical about Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Like, I love Nova Scotia. I'm one of those people, like, I have friends that, they'll be here and they'll just move.
Yeah.
Nova Scotia has been home for almost 10 years now, and I think it's home. Like, I'll go wherever I'm going, but, like, when you come down, you see that sign of Halifax at the airport,
Yes,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, yeah, okay, cool, I'm home now.
Yeah.
So that love for Nova Scotia and just, the post you put up, LinkedIn made me reach out to you. Where does that love for Halifax and Nova Scotia come from?
Yeah, it's really something that has been more recent, and it's similar to a lot of people that grew up here. When I was a kid, most people don't always like where they grow up. They say, I want to go somewhere else. I want to go west, or I want to go to a big city, or Halifax or Nova Scotia doesn't have what I like. And I had a lot of those thoughts growing up. When I was in high school, there is nothing more than I wanted to leave Nova Scotia, which probably surprises a lot of people because they see the post and they think, where did this change come from? But, honestly, it's grown on me. I didn't necessarily appreciate all the things that I had as a kid. The way Nova Scotia is, the community that's here. It's a lot more close-knit than a lot of areas. The people are so friendly. You can go anywhere, you can go to a grocery store. In some small towns, if you're from a small town, you might be an hour just talking to people because you always run into people you know. People are so friendly. There's people visiting here and they get caught up in how friendly people are. And I just thought Nova Scotia was this kind of, special place that was untapped. It had all this potential. And Nova Scotia always had so many struggles. I mean, you look at the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s and just 10 years ago, this was a province that had a population that was declining. People said, you got to leave if you want opportunity. There wasn't a whole lot of diversity in the province. And now it's this place that's exploding. There's so much more diversity now within our communities. There's so much more happening here on the business front, arts, just in communities in general. So they're really coming together and building up. And it's the first time for a long time. And I think it's, kind of Nova Scotia's time. And over time, I always asked myself, why can't we be that place that everyone always talks about? People talk about all these great places, Toronto or wherever out west is this great place with all this opportunity. And I think I took it as almost a frustration. Like, why can't Nova Scotia be that place? Why can't we have opportunities for anyone could do anything they love? No matter what they love to do, what their passion is, why can't they do it in Nova Scotia? And I think I really took hold of that, and now seeing the province starting to rise, I absolutely think it's great for the people. And I think we're just, we're not even there, but we're on our way to something special. I really do. And, that's not to say we don't have challenges. There's a lot of people, hurting right now. And when places grow, it certainly creates, some hardships. But I think with the type of people we have here and how good they are, how caring they are for others in the community, that we really can make this work and finally become the place that, nobody thought Nova Scotia could be. We were, for a long time written off as a have-not province. And I don't think that's the case anymore.
No, I don't think so. Like, the change has been great. Even for someone that's just been here for a few years, like, you can see, like, you go into the store 5, 6, 7 years ago versus now. It's like, oh my God, there's so many different colors oppressors, immigrants everywhere.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like that frustration. Like, was there anything you did in any way to contribute to this change that's happening?
Yeah, I thought that, there's challenges. Like the challenges are tough and there's nothing that one person can do. But really my thought process was I'm going to do whatever I can to make this province better. And hopefully, others around me will see people that are passionate, that are saying, I'm going to stay in Nova Scotia. I'm going to work to build this the place it can be. And I hope through small actions, it could, inspire others to do something in their own area. For me, mental health was certainly one. Talking about mental health, working in the mental health sector in Nova Scotia, providing new opportunities for people who are struggling, with addictions and mental health. What can I do to make their life better? Because that's one piece of the puzzle. And everyone has their own piece of the puzzle to contribute. Some people, maybe they're an expert on, housing. Maybe some people are really passionate about the arts, like yourself. Everyone has their piece to do really great here in Nova Scotia because it all comes together. There's not one thing someone can do that's going to make this province great. It's a whole collective effort of a bunch of communities, of a bunch of individuals doing things that build a province up to what it can be. So with me, it's been mental health, and obviously I've been involved in politics quite a bit too. So, trying to have some influence there and letting people know that are in charge of what I think and ways to help them. So it's a small piece, but my hope is that people see my piece and they say, you know what, I'm going to do my piece because he's right. Nova Scotia can be the place, that everyone says it couldn't be. And I'm going to do my thing and we're going to build this province.
Wow. You mentioned politics, so tell me, like the politics. When you say politics, in what way are you involved, or?
Yeah, I've always been interested in politics, and of course, with my love with Nova Scotia, it was kind of the natural collider of okay, how can I make change or influence change? So it went a little bit with my mental health work as well. In 2021, I had a conversation with Tim Houston, the Premier of Nova Scotia now, and I talked to him about my experience with mental health and just about Nova Scotia in general. And he convinced me to run for MLA in the 2021 provincial election. Actually in the North End, so right here in Halifax, which I said yes to. I'm a person that likes to say yes to because, sometimes you don't always have all the answers. And, a lot of people said, you're young, you're only 22, 23. Can you do that job? Can you make change in politics? And I didn't know all the answers. Of course, when you're young, you don't have all the answers. Sometimes you think you do, but you don't. And the one thing I did know, though, was that, anyone that came to me with a problem, anyone that was struggling in the community that I was in, I would do whatever I could to solve their problem, to help them. I would do anything I could if they walked through that door. And I knew that one answer to that question. And to me, that was important, saying, yes, I can do this. So I decided to run in the provincial election. It's a tough riding, so I didn't win, but I was able to talk to people every single day. I was able to hear their stories, what they're going through. And I mean, when you knock on someone's door in politics, you never know, who's going to open up that door, what they've been through, or what they're going through right now. And that was a privilege. So I would say, at first, my first experience in politics, I ran and I, got beaten quite badly. But it was an honor because I got to hear people's stories. And just hearing one of those stories makes it all worth it. So that kind of, launched me into the world of politics, and I've been involved with Tim Houston's Progressive Conservative Party now for a few years, having different positions and doing a little bit of, volunteer work with the party. And it's really energized me. to build up this province more. You know, right now is a tough time for, you know, I don't need to say for politicians, for people in general. It's a very tough time to build a province and make it better. There's so many challenges. And one thing I learned going into politics, and, you know, just for me in Nova Scotia, is that, you know, everyone wants to make this place better. You know, they don't always get it right. You know, there's a lot of times they don't get it right. But what I found quite like profound was every person, every party, no matter, you know, their background, what their perspectives are, their ideas, they do love this place. You know, sometimes you get in arguments or have different like opinions, but they do love this place.
Yeah.
And they want to make it the best place possible. So that's really encouraging, and that's what's got me to stay in politics and be involved. And that's why I probably will, you know, always be involved in politics, because you can make big decisions. And for someone who loves the province, and, you know, as you mentioned that post I originally made where you reached out, you know, if you want to make big changes, that's where you got to go. That's where you got to go. And I've always been a person where I will go wherever I have to build the province that I want to see, you know, with the time I have.
So I introduced you as an author. This is your book right here, Chasing Numbers.
Yeah.
Starve, Sleep, Repeat. Do you want to talk a little bit about Chasing Numbers?
Yeah, for sure. So when I first decided to kind of write this book, it was just after that 2021 election. So I had shared my story publicly, and it was sort of out there. It was my first time sharing this story with anyone, because I had, you know, anorexia nervosa when I was 18.
So for people that might not know what that is, what is that?
Yeah, so it's an eating disorder. So it's one of the most severe, deadly eating disorders. Only has a 20% recovery rate. Has the highest death rate of any mental illness. So anorexia nervosa often starts as something innocent. Some people are trying to maybe get healthier, lose some weight. But there's a mental component too, very real psychological change that happens in someone's brain when they have anorexia nervosa. And oftentimes it has a little bit of overlap with sometimes even schizophrenia, where there's a voice almost in you saying things that aren't true about your body. So oftentimes it's from body image, you know, saying that you are much bigger than you are. You know, manipulating sometimes the numbers that you're taking in every day when it comes to food intake. And it's really a disease that can take hold of an individual. And that's what happened to me. You know, when I was, you know, 16, 17, I started dieting because I thought I was, you know, a little bit bigger. I was in high school, and, you know, prom was coming up. And I want to look good for prom. I want to, you know, be a little bit more slender. You know, as a lot of kids now, you know, do. They focus a lot on their body image. And I ended up, you know, very quickly sliding into, you know, basically a catastrophic eating disorder that took hold of my life severely. So, you know, I was in the 220-pound range when I was in grade 11. And very quickly by graduation, I was, you know, in the 130-pound range at 6'2". So quite a...
That's in like months.
Yes, in months.
Wow.
Quite a dramatic drop in weight. And, you know, it ended up spiraling more and more and more until eventually I had to go into the hospital. So there was a long recovery period, but when I recovered, I never told anyone about this. My parents knew I had it, and my immediate family, but outside of that, I told no one until 2021, where I shared it publicly. And that was really a relief. Sometimes, you know, we go through a traumatic experience and we bury it deep down inside of us, and we kind of want to pretend it wasn't a part of our life. And really sharing that story publicly kind of brought it up again. And not in a bad way, but in a way I could reflect on it and come at, you know, a little bit of peace with it. And I thought, why don't I share my story? Why don't I write it out from, start to finish? Because there's a lot of people that are going through, what I had right now. And oftentimes when they go through it, anorexia nervosa is a very secretive mental illness. So oftentimes, someone struggling from depression or sometimes other mental illnesses, they're not open to talking about it. Like with mental illness, a lot of people are very, they like to keep it hidden. But with anorexia nervosa, you go to all lengths, ridiculous lengths to hide that illness to make sure that nobody knows. And to be able to share that with people that are struggling and oftentimes, maybe struggling alone, I thought that'd be a great way to help them. And it turns out once I did end up, putting pen to paper and writing the story out and releasing the book, the first day I released it, I had a mother reach out to me in Cole Harbour, and she had a daughter that was about to go into inpatient, into the hospital at the IWK. And that was the same center that I went into years earlier with the same illness, the same situation. So she got my book the day before her daughter went into the hospital. So she was able to read what this illness really was. And that's what this book was about. It's not a book, if you're trying to recover, that you should read, because it's quite harsh with its realities.
It has a content. I don't think I've ever read a book that had a content warning before. Like, it's literally first page.
Yeah.
Why did you have to put that there?
I put that there because, oftentimes people with anorexia nervosa, before they get help, they often try to listen to other people's stories or try to hear from others, or they're looking for help, but they don't really know how to get there. And I didn't want someone that is fully involved in that disease, that illness, reading this book, because that could be quite triggering to them. There were some severe behaviors in there, very severe behaviors. And one of my fears was that someone might try to mimic.
Oh, right. It's almost like a roadmap to...
Yeah, it's basically a roadmap and guide to an eating disorder. So it was very much written for parents and those around people that have the illness, because really, without having the illness, it's very hard to understand, because it's very hard to get people to share that have it, and most people don't know what it looks like. So this book was written from the perspective of anorexia nervosa, the deadliness, what the disease actually is, the harshness of it. And a lot of parents reached out to me, and they thought the book was very helpful. They thought that it changed their perspective on the disease. But it was also the hardest thing that they ever read, because they didn't realize how harsh it was psychologically, how much it changes who they are, and also that their own child, they didn't really realize that that's what they were going through. The parents think, oh, my child's struggling, they have an eating disorder, but they didn't know how bad it was and what that illness truly is, because it truly is a monster inside someone. It can change you forever.
Wow. So with the title Chasing Numbers, like what is it, like the scale?
Yeah, the scale for sure, and also the food calories and numbers within food, nutritional content. Because when you have anorexia nervosa, numbers are the only thing you see. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, there is not 1 second, one interaction through the day you're not thinking about numbers. You're thinking about how much you weigh. You might weigh yourself 40 times in a day. You're thinking about how much food you took in. You know how much calories is in any food product. You become basically a dictionary of what is in food, and every type of food, the brand, everything. And you become quite good at it, and you are basically chasing numbers all day long. When I went into the hospital for inpatient, they have a process called refeeding. So that's the first 2 weeks when you're not stable enough to walk, you're in a wheelchair, you're in bed rest, and basically your body's vitals are quite weak. So they just give you food. And that's all you do. You eat 3 meals, 3 snacks a day for a few weeks just to get your vitals back on track. And of course, they don't tell you what's in the food, because as someone who has the mental illness, they're not going to say, this has so many calories. But I spent about 8 hours. They gave me a sheet of paper and a pen because I asked for it. And I spent hours jotting down numbers in my head of what I thought was in that food. How many calories based on what they gave me in their meals. And I spent 8 hours doing that, writing down what I had in the day. And there was these pieces of paper, probably about 4 or 5 of them, and they were just covered with hundreds of numbers of me estimating.
Fuck.
And by the end of the day, I told them how much they were giving me exactly, and I had it dead on, because I had spent over a year tracking everything, every drop. If I had any type of liquid, any, peanut butter, for example, on toast, I would take a tablespoon and measure it to the gram. I would measure everything perfectly. So when you do that for so long and it becomes part of who you are, the illness really entrenches itself. You learn what's in everything to a scary amount.
Yeah, you're saying this and I'm thinking, okay, chasing numbers, like there is like a goal weight, right?
Yes.
Does it get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm here, I'm going to stop, or by then it's like too late?
It doesn't. So when I first started trying to lose a little bit of weight, it was quite innocent. I thought I'm going to go to the gym. It was, just go for a run on the treadmill, because I didn't want to be super, skinny or anything. I just wanted to lose a bit of weight. And then I was going to go to the gym and, try to bulk up and, do all these things as, a lot of, young boys do when they're in high school. So at first I was like, well, I need to lose a little bit of weight, so I'm just going to run on the treadmill. And just that innocent diet that I was on and that exercise, turned into something completely different than what was intended. And oftentimes an eating disorder, starts by habits we have as a little kid growing up, what our family eats like, what we've eaten like. Also what we see, our cultural, surroundings. If you go to a grocery store, you see, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds shopping with their parents. What do they see when they go to the checkout? They see, a stack of magazines of how to lose 30 pounds, that the stomach fat's not good for them. They hear parents, so many girls, 5, 6, boys too, hear, a parent saying, oh, I got to skip a meal because I got to lose weight. And oftentimes we don't think that that's something that's harmful. But when your brain is developing and that's all around you, we live in the Western world where diet culture is all around us. It comes up and it trenches itself into individuals. And that's what starts sometimes the harmful pattern. So when I first went into it, I had a goal weight. I was just going to lose a little bit of weight. But that goal line kept on moving.
Right.
And then it gets to a point where you can't stop that goal line. And where you don't even realize the situation you're in. When I was at my worst, I was down to about 118, 117 pounds at 6'2". But when I looked at myself, I didn't see that. I thought I was still 170 pounds. I thought I was still fat, that I need to lose weight before I could go to the gym and bulk up, because I thought, I still had a long way to go. Wow. So eventually that goal line starts moving, and the further it moves, you start losing sight of what is actually true. You don't see yourself anymore. When you look in the mirror, you don't see that sick, thin person. You see someone that's large.
Wow.
It completely changes your mindset and how you think. So it's really hard.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine it. But you wrote the book that has, positively affected at least the people surrounding the person.
Yeah.
Facing the anorexia nervosa.
Yes.
Nervosa?
Yes. Yeah.
But now you also manage this clinic. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so I didn't work in mental health, but of course, once I shared my story and wrote the book, it was kind of an opportunity came up right, in front of me to work for Eating Disorders Nova Scotia. And, at first when I came to the organization, it was quite small. There was only about 4 people working there, and completely virtual. And we had a part-time clinician on to do some work with individuals that were, impacted by eating disorders. And really, in my time there, we knew there was barriers. We knew there was a lot of people that couldn't access support, that couldn't access it because it was expensive. And there wasn't a whole lot of options in public health either. You basically had to be on the verge of death to go into a hospital. And then if you want to help privately, well, $200 for a therapist per session. A lot of people facing eating disorders are young women in university, low income, food insecure. There's a lot of links with eating disorders. So it's very challenging. So what we ended up doing was, building up to a full-scale clinic over the past couple of years to help people with eating disorders. We have dietitians, we have therapists, we've had social workers. So anyone can access support, at a rate that works for them. If you can't pay, that's okay. You still deserve to be able to recover from an eating disorder. You still deserve to be able to have support and not be alone through that process. So what started as something very small in Nova Scotia is now expanded to all of Atlantic Canada. I've had the privilege in the last few months to go all throughout New Brunswick and, meet with 200 clinicians across the province, go to Newfoundland, Labrador, Prince Edward Island, and all over Nova Scotia to talk to doctors, mental health providers, community groups to figure out how can we better support people with eating disorders. Because, not many people hear about eating disorders.
No,
it's not something you hear about every day, but it's a huge issue. I mean, we have 300, active clients throughout the year across Atlantic Canada.
Wow.
And only about 10% of people with an eating disorder actually go to get help.
Right, because like you said, it's really, really hidden.
It's very hidden. Most people won't go to get support. They keep it hidden. And so that's a big number for what's actually coming to us. And there's a lot more of it out there. But, it's become such a problem in our society because of how, in the Western world, we do portray everything. I mean, with, everyone has to be fit, thin, skinny, and we have this association that thin is healthy. And that's not usually the case. The thin doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. Health has, physical aspects, what you're eating every single day. So it's become a huge problem, and it's really been an honor to be able to work on and be the manager of that clinic. I would say it's the clinicians that do the great work. As someone that didn't have clinical background coming into Eating Disorders Nova Scotia, really I had to learn from them and look at other clinics and learn how to build things. So it was a very unique and humbling experience to be able to come in and do that work and build such a great resource. But there's a lot of other people that work at that organization that do hard work. And,
wow. You're an amazing person. Okay. I usually ask my guests this question.
Yeah.
And so basically, I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to ask anyway. What is something that happened to you before you were 17 that you feel is responsible for the person you are today?
Yeah, I think it's not one single thing, but it's a short time period. When I was in grade 11, I think I had a struggle with myself of deciding who I was as a person. And a lot of people have that struggle when they're in high school, that tug of war back and forth between what their surroundings want them to become and who they truly are. And grade 11 sticks out to me as a time where I really had that tug of war between myself. And, for a long time I thought, don't be the person you are. The person you are is not that, great. Be the things that other people around you say you should be or are and you should aspire to be. And I think in grade 11, I finally won that battle in my mind of, I could become the person I truly was. I could stay true to myself, and be okay that was the right path. And ultimately, that experience, that short time where I really struggled with that thought, is probably what kickstarted some of the mental health issues I went through.
Oh boy.
But
Right.
in the long term now, that struggle to stay true to myself, to be who I really am, yes, it did cause some things, but it worked out. It worked out in the end because the path was meant to be that I have now. You know, I went through those struggles, that recovered. Now I'm able to help those people. So even though short-term pain, it did help me in the long run. And so that struggle was important.
And another thing that actually, you know, just hit me when you said that was like the conviction. It was just like, you know, 20 lines of this post, but there was so much conviction. It's like, okay, this person knows who they are.
Yeah,
In the post you put on LinkedIn, like, okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's a struggle, and a lot of people struggle with that. And it's something like I struggled with that for a long time. I doubted who I was. And, you know, the thing is, you have one life. You know, you don't have that many years. So you just got to be who you are. Find out what you're great at and do that thing. You just got to do it to the best of your ability, and you know, trust that things will work out, because, you know, sometimes things don't look so great, and they work out. They find a way. So you just got to be yourself and find a way.
Wow. Okay. Before I let you go, I'm gonna. So here's a sheet for you.
Okay.
And here's a pen. You can write a number, any number you want, between 1 and 60. I can't see it, but you can show the camera once you're done.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what that number is.
Okay.
All right. Let me know once you're ready. And
Okay, I'm ready.
So you can show the camera.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, so it can be one or more cards, right?
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go one at a time, and you let me know if your number is in there or not.
Okay.
Is it here?
It's in there.
It's in here, so okay. How about here?
It's in that one.
How about here?
It is not.
It is not. Okay, how about here?
It is in that card.
Is in.
Yep, it's in this card.
Is in this one. Okay. How about this one?
It is.
Oh wow. Okay.
I know. I picked a.
How about this one?
It is in that card too.
This one. Okay. This is a big. This is a tough one. Okay, so let's see here. 55.
That is the number. 55. I was thinking you had, 4 or 5 cards. I thought, I don't know how you're going to pick that one.
Scott, thank you so much for coming. The amazing work you're doing and for sharing your story.
Yeah.
You're changing lives, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. No, and I'm on the small part of it. There's a lot of people that are doing great work.